You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. Football is here. We got some spring practice to talk about, specifically A-Day. We got a scrimmage in Jordan-Hare. We were allowed up to 40%, 28% of the capacity of Jordan-Hare was filled up, around 25,000 fans. It was a fun time. I was able to go with 25,000 other Auburn fans. It was a great day. I think it was supposed to rain a little bit, which was nice. I don't think it rained at all, pretty much during the whole day in Auburn, Alabama. Jared, just overall, what did you get to see since you were at home watching it from the TV? What did you overall think about A-Day?
Was that a subtle jab there of like, hey, I got to go, and hey, Jared, you were at home, so what did you think about it? I wanted to be there. I couldn't make it happen, so I'm glad you got to go. It did look like nice weather. Probably a little cooler than we normally would expect for an A-Day.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a jab. I promise.
I'm messing with you. It's hurting me, but you didn't mean it that way. You're too nice of a guy. It was fun to watch. I've actually gone back and watched a couple of drives again. Just seeing football. We got the new regime at the head of everything. I looked a little more into second time around. Was watching like, okay, how's the pass blocking and all that. Usually you're just watching quarterback. So I thought, it was pretty good to watch it at the house. Probably got to see a little more than you did there. So I'm excited to talk about what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like from the stadium, there was good energy around it. The players looked like they were out there playing well. Even with, they've only been in how many practices now? Like pretty much a dozen or so practices where they've actually installed all the offenses and defenses, schemes, and all that kind of stuff. And yet, it seemed pretty good. I know they're still at the base level. But they're getting there, and this is, I feel like you can't really tell, oh great, the offense is going to be good or it's not going to be good after an A-Day. I mean, you're just at the beginning stages of it, or even on defense. I mean, the schemes that we're doing, that Derek Mason is doing, they look a lot different, and offensively, they definitely look a lot different. Let's just kind of talk overall about offense and kind of what you saw, because there was maybe one time where like there might have been a Gus Malzahn type play that Auburn fans might have freaked out, but for the most part, it was new-ish type plays that I feel like were good. They were kind of different. Obviously, it was first team versus second string, and then second team versus first team, so it was kind of like a mixture of all that. But Jared, let's start out with offense. What did you see out of offense in this A-Day?
I'm going to be honest, man. I think this is the year. Bo Nix has improved so much under this new offense. He's focused. He's having fun. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a dark horse for the Heisman, AJ.
Oh, man. I wonder if I've heard that phrase before, because it's everywhere on Twitter.
Yeah.
If you're not in on the joke, somebody has copied that quote like a billion times. Like, I feel like every tweet that I make from the ETC account it's somebody responds that. It's hilarious. And it's not just us, it's everybody. I mean, even Bo Nix's name was trending on Twitter for a little bit because of people literally saying this. I think while, what you kind of said is like he looked pretty good in the offense, but I don't know, like Heisman already? Like, I feel like this jumping the gun pretty hard.
Well, I had a buddy who wasn't able to watch, and he sent me, he said, is Bo looking that good? Because Twitter's going crazy. And I probably responded too harshly. I said no. But what I meant was, it wasn't anything he was doing bad, but I wasn't watching Bo play and say, oh, this guy's a dark horse Heisman. I didn't expect that, though. It's a brand new offense.
Oh, no.
They haven't had much time to practice. He's got brand new receivers, and two of them aren't even playing, in Capers and Jackson. So I didn't expect a lot. I will say that first play being a screen, I think it was actually the second team offense because Tank ran the kickoff back. So first play, screen pass, and I got a little nervous got a little nervous. Wide receiver screen. I said, is Gus calling plays?
All the way in Orlando.
But on the flip side, Bo's first play, even Anthony Schwartz tweeted about this. It was under center, play action, throw to a tight end.
Yeah. Have you heard that before? It's been a very long time, Auburn fans, since you've heard under center and in the same sentence, throw to a tight end.
Throw to a tight end. Completed, and it was like a 10-yard play. I mean, it was to Jake Fromm's brother. I always forget he's on the team.
Yeah, Tyler Fromm's on there, and he's, I think, finding a little spot in this offense as a tight end. I mean, there were times where I one of the things I kind of liked, and we had kind of been hinted at, hey, under Mike Bobo and Brian Harsin, we're going to see multiple tight ends on the field. We did. There were multiple times where there were at least 2 tight ends on the field. And you get some big body guys out there, like tight ends that are 6'7", and they're going up against DBs that are just a little over, sometimes right at 6 feet. You got some good length there that they can throw at. So I always love that. As long as the tight ends, they may at this point be I feel like the stronger strength of our receiving core. At least at this point, I think there's definitely some growth. I mean, Harsin harped on it. I feel like throughout spring practice and even after this game, the wide receiver core has a lot to work on, which is to be expected when Seth Williams and Elijah Stove and Anthony Schwartz are all gone. Those were our top guys that we've had over the last few years. So it's kind of to be expected. But honestly, okay, let's talk about, wide receiver to quarterback. I feel like there needs to be some chemistry that needs to be built around that. What do you think needs to happen to get to a spot where we can have a consistent passing game?
I don't know. I think it's probably going to be time. I do think there's already a connection with Elijah Canyon and Bo. Not just, we were wondering was Elijah a one-hit wonder, that deep bomb in the bowl game?
Yeah.
I don't think he is, because he was running legit routes. I don't think he dropped a pass. He found space in the end zone, and that was kudos to Bo, too, because Bo was supposed to keep rolling on that, I think. He saw it right away, and it just showed his arm talent. He didn't even step. He just slung it, to the back of the end zone. I think they got a good connection. I think it was Schwartz that said Kobe Hudson looks the most ready, receiver ready, and he does. Like when you watch him play, he looks like a receiver. He dropped a few passes, and apparently that is one of the problems. But you would assume that can be fixed or corrected with practice. The one thing that scares me, and I don't know this, and I would have done the same thing. One of his drops was over the middle when a defender was approaching. And I don't know how you outcoach that. I mean, if you're scared to go over the middle, I would be too. But it was one of those where he kind of short-armed it because there was traffic. But other than that, he does look like he had a couple catches. He looks like a good receiver.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you hit on it. Elijah Canyon kind of seemed to be the highlight of the receiving core from this game. And I agree. I don't think he's a one-hit wonder that we saw in the bowl game last year, and then we won't see him again making any catches. Like, I legitimately think Elijah Canyon is going to be one of the main guys that we go to during this season as kind of a all around kind of wide receiver. I mean, he kind of does remind me of, like, I don't know if he's up to the Seth Williams standards, but he's one of those guys that
he
goes and gets the ball.
Yeah, he's a tall guy. Uses his body well, it appears, and I don't know if he's going to have Seth could also juke players and leap over them. We haven't seen that yet, but no, I don't think you're out of. I think that's a good comparison, to Seth. I will say, I'll go ahead and say it right now. And of course, I said Shedrick Jackson would lead the team last year. Barring injury, I think Elijah Canyon's he'll be the number one receiver. I mean, just based off what we saw. I think he had 7 targets and caught them all. So I would not be surprised if he leads the team in receiving next year.
Yeah, and even Xavion Capers, I know he's been out. He ended up having a foot surgery back in January, but he got to the point where I think the injury took a little too much out of him, and good thing right after the bowl game, he got injured in the bowl game to go ahead and get it knocked out. So he's able, hopefully by the time fall rolls around, that he can actually come and play full speed. And I think he's going to be another one of those that you'll see on Saturday a good bit.
Who's number 6? Because he got a lot of attention, and he actually had a couple of good catches. They did like one of those slip screen, bring the receiver back to the middle of the field, and he was returning punts as well. I don't know him, but he seemed to get a lot of focus as well. So maybe they are seeing good things in practice.
Yeah, I mean Javarius Johnson, that's number 6.
Okay.
Yeah, he was one of the main targets, I feel like, from the quarterbacks that played, and then like you said, he's got some potential for punt returns, maybe kickoff returns. We didn't see him at kickoff return, but that's kind of showing me if he's at punt return already. He was the first guy out when we punted. He was the guy out there receiving punts. I mean, I think we lost all of our returning punt returners, so we're trying to figure out that position. I'm sure, but hey, whenever Javarius Johnson was out there, they kind of did live. I'm putting in air quotes here because they were kind of running at him, but they weren't really going to hit him or anything. Just to kind of get the tempo and the pressure up where the guy's going to be in your face when you catch it. Just making sure you filled the punt cleanly. All right, let's also talk about the other quarterbacks and kind of running backs. So we also had Grant Loy, Demetrius Davis, Trey Lindsey, Sawyer Pate, and Chael Garnett. So we had, pretty much all 6 of our quarterbacks at some point get to play a good bit. The Grant Loy was the obvious number 2. He got a good number of the snaps. We didn't even see Demetrius Davis until really the third quarter of the practice. But that's to be expected. Demetrius is a freshman. And I think Grant Loy is one of those that he can just be a solid backup. But, I mean, you're kind of seeing there's definitely a drop-off between what Bo Nix is able to offer and what Grant Loy is able to offer. But, I mean, there's a reason Bo's kind of our quarterback right now, despite, people always rooting for the favorite player on the team, the backup quarterback. So, I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. But, Jared, what do you think about the quarterback play and how the running backs handled all these different kinds of new things that were thrown at them?
I didn't even get to see Demetrius Davis's 43-yard pass, but I did see him scrambling stuff. Even without seeing it, I'm going to make this comment. He's got to be our number 2. I mean, nothing against Grant Loy at all, but if it comes down to Grant Loy can come in and manage if Bo, is getting checked out in the booth, but if Bo's out for a number of games, it's going to have to be somebody. And with the talent Davis has, I mean, we forget. I mean, we kind of just push it to the side. He was the number 3 dual threat quarterback in the nation. And I think he broke, some records in Texas. So, he's a legit guy.
Yeah.
Now he's 5'10", but there's a couple of, I think there may be a 5'10" guy who just retired NFL that'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So, that can still be done. So I guess my point being, nothing against any of these people. We're just talking strictly on the field. I think it's a huge drop off after Bo. And I'm hoping Davis may be the only one to have the talent to fill that huge drop-off.
Yeah, and he's got a little bit different skill set. Like Grant Loy is going to be a more pocket passer. But Demetrius, I mean, you even saw it. He had really a good run when I think it looked like a design run play, or maybe he only had like one guy he was going to look at, and if he was covered, then he was going to bolt for it. But either way, it was good to see his legs. Because, I mean, we've seen it in film. It was good to see in Jordan-Hare. He's got the legs to run. And he did have that one dime to Malcolm Johnson Jr. that ended up being in the air pretty much the whole time for 43 yards. It was beautiful. I mean, that was, I think, probably one of the bigger and flashier plays of the day. So
if you think about it, and again, I'm not this guy may never start for Auburn, but if you his high school film, it was all deep passes. So essentially, it's either he uses athleticism to run or throw deep passes. But if you go look at like Justin Fields and those guys, they're throwing deep passes really well, and that's really what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, Bo, the difference is Bo throws the short pass very well. Like Bo's accuracy is 71% under 10 yards,
Yep.
and he's thrown like 2 picks in his whole life. Over 10 yards, it's 31%, and he's thrown 9 interceptions. And I think we saw that again on Saturday. Like the deep pass was not there. Now, Harsin later on came out and said that coaches know things that we don't, and he made it sound like all those were on the receiver.
Yeah.
And it may be. The only thing that scares me a little bit is Bo threw a deep pass to Kobe in the end zone, and he jumped again when he threw it. And I don't know if he thought he had to get more on it or what. But going back to fundamentals, there was still room. The ball landed at the goal line, and there was 10 more yards to get it further into the end zone where Kobe would have been the only one.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm sure that's still one of those things where you, especially for Bo Nix, this will be his third offensive coordinator and third quarterback coach, and there's just a lot of different teaching and a lot of different, probably in some point, some bad habits that he's got to break at some point to get the reliable footwork, the reliable throwing motion that he's got to have to get those longer passes and to do it in a game-like situation or a scrimmage consistently. I mean, there's a point where he's got to just break all the old habits and move on with these new habits that should hopefully ultimately help him and make him after Auburn even more marketable. So I think obviously we know Bo Nix is very talented, but he's still got some work to do.
He stood in the pocket a couple of times, yesterday where he wouldn't have in the past. So there's improvement. He's just got such a cannon of an arm. So there's a lot to work with there, and hopefully Bobo and Harsin can mold that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there were some other times where I was looking at it, and I don't know if it was the design of the play, like you said, but he did stay in the pocket a good bit, and I was very pleased to see that. I know he's not quote unquote live, but he was in there in the pocket, kind of handling things. And if he needed to, he did scoot out of the pocket. And there was even a time I think he scooted out of the pocket and ended up scoring, but then he got called back at the 5-yard line. Though if I'm being honest, I think Bo Nix would have, he'd
have scored that live action. Nobody was going to actually tackle him. I think it was J.J. Pegues that got his hand on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that he would have scored. Oh yeah, he'd have had a rushing touchdown and probably a few more. He had several good scrambles. You just hate for him to have to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, he's very athletic. He's a gamer. Got a cannon of an arm.
Yeah.
He's got to get that footwork right.
Yep, definitely. A little something on the running back. So we obviously saw Tank. He looked pretty solid. Had that 46-yard, really explosive run. He did all right. I mean, he's Tank Bigsby, and I think he's going to be good for this offense. But another guy, and I tweeted this, I legitimately think Shaun Shivers is a perfect candidate for this offense. He's not just going to be kind of like, Gus kind of, using him as like second or third string, like just the gadget kind of guy. I think he's going to get more of that, more than that. I think it's going to be a more consistent role because Tank obviously has the ability to do just about everything. But the way Shivers hits holes, it's like a one-cut hit the hole. And that's what Shivers needs.
If he could find a way to see ahead of the play, like Tank juked the safety 15 yards away from the safety. Well, Shivers is going to he's looking for somebody to run over. So I totally agree with you. I think Shivers looked amazing. And that line, if they were getting them to the second level, if Shivers can find a way to avoid the player,
yeah.
I mean, he could start turning 15-yard runs into 30, 40, 50.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. He hits the hole well. They need to work on maybe his vision a little bit of all right, look, start thinking ahead because Tank's thinking ahead.
Yep.
And I don't know if you can teach that, even if it makes sense. But
you put them through enough scenarios, and then you start to get their eyes instead of looking 5 yards down the field to 10 yards down the field, and that's when you can. I think that's where the vision starts.
I was very pleased with Shivers. I thought he probably was my surprise player.
Yeah.
I thought the O-line run block, we're probably going to get to that. I thought run blocking, they picked right up where they were when they were healthy last year, maybe even improved a little bit. Run blocking have no problems, and even Tank made a comment. He said this group's going to be great. So
I think so too. I mean, you start thinking about the run offense at the end of last year. Really was kind of one of our. If you're running, they could open up some holes. Tank would hit them. Shivers would hit them. It was just when they're in pass offense where the line had to really kind of hold the defenders off for a little bit. That was when things broke down, and I think that's something that with this power run offense. I mean, there were times where I looked at the formation. We essentially had 6 down linemen, offensive linemen, plus an extra tight end. So you're essentially having like 7 guys that could potentially just be a run blocker for. And if you start doing that over and over, I mean, it'll wear down on a team. Because I'm thinking back to when we played, who was it? Trying to think. Minnesota. They kind of did the same kind of thing. They were a power run. They would sometimes have their big man set where they would have like 6 or 7 linemen on the field at the same time. And they would
Northwestern in the bowl game?
Was it Northwestern?
Yeah, we played Minnesota last year.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about Minnesota 2 years ago.
You may have even thought them. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page with you.
Yeah, I mean, I just remembered them doing that, and you knew what was coming. And
nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's something that offenses have gone away with. And, I mean, it's just like everything in life. It's like fashions. It's like everything goes to and from. Like, things return. And maybe this is one of those. We'll just kind of have to see if this power run of lining up 6-7 guys will ultimately pay off.
AJ, apparently the mullet's even come back. I don't know if you've seen that. So you're talking about what's gone and come back. But I think you're right, man. You make a great point. I was actually going to hit on it. I think everything's become spread, go fast. I think we are going to be most successful if we go back to the boring basic of power run. And I think we need to run 60-65% versus passing. Listen, there is no denying that our best option is a healthy Tank. And with Shivers playing like he was, that's not a bad option either. We do not need to put this on Bo's shoulders, and not necessarily only because of Bo, but because every receiver out there has no experience, except for Shedrick Jackson, and Capers has a little bit. Our best chance to win, it may not be pretty. That defense, I think, is going to be nasty. Go out there, run the ball, don't make mistakes, play good defense, win the field position battles, and you're going to win some games you're not supposed to, probably.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm honestly hoping for. I mean, anytime when you have a first-year head coach and you've still got some talent like Auburn does, I think we're expected to win, a good number of our games. But there may be some games that we just are able to put everything together. The players, finally start, a light bulb goes off. They finally see something. They finally figure it out. And there's going to be games where we see a lot of growth in this next season. It'll take a while, but I feel like our schedule kind of works out pretty good for that with the 4 non-conference games at the beginning. And you kind of build upon that as you go throughout the season. So I think it kind of sets up well, especially with us having already some well-talented players. It's just now them having to learn new offensive and defensive schemes.
Hey Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Something else, I mean, you kind of hinted at it already about offensive line, but I do think the offensive line, run-wise, was doing well. I mean, they opened up that huge hole for Tank to run right through. I mean, there's multiple times where Shivers kind of did the same thing. Even, we haven't even mentioned his name, Devin Barrett was out there. Since it's so good to see him. So good to see him again. Because what was it like? He came in as a running back, switched to defensive back, and then wasn't on the team last year, but he's here for his senior year, which I thought was kind of cool that they were able to get him back, and that also helps with running back talent and running back depth that we very much need.
Yeah, don't forget he was a 4-star. I know people get caught up in stars. I mean, he's not just a guy you put out there. I mean,
yeah.
he was a 4-star, and maybe from Florida, I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, he's got talent. I think he's just never been utilized properly.
Yeah. One other thing I just want to talk about on offense, and I thought this was an interesting quote from Nick Brahms. So he was asked about Auburn's offensive line this spring, and he said, one of the things that we're lacking was football IQ. He says that offensive line, Will Friend, has taught them to read defenses and focus on the looks that they're being given instead of just, running through the play on offense, which kind of made me think there's a slightly, at least on offensive line, and I think this may honestly be larger than the offensive line, is a difference in mentality of you've got to play. Obviously, you called it, but what if the defense gives you something else? How do you adjust to that? How do you tweak things to make the play still work? And I think that's where, especially on offensive line, you kind of read what the defense is giving you, because a lot of times you don't even know who's going to be actually blitzing or going or not. And so it's like there's a lot of you kind of just almost have to react to what happens in front of you. And that's what offensive lines need to do. So I think that there's maybe a mentality change, at least offensive line, but I think Harsin's even hinted at it with wide receivers. There's a lot of little details of, if the guy lines up, bump and run on you, you run this route. But if he's 7 yards off the line, you run this route on this exact same play. So it's like you have to know the little ins and outs of every single play and be on the same page as everybody else on the team. So I think those are only going to come with more of these reps, more of these scrimmages and game-like situations. So I think there's going to be some growing. There's obviously growing pains, but you're seeing some growth from those growing pains, which I think is ultimately what we need to do, especially in spring practice. All right, Jared, let's jump over to defense a little bit. I think the game started off pretty hot. I think we already talked about it, where there was that bubble screen, and guess what? Smoke Monday read that bubble screen, because guess what? He's seen that 100 times in practice.
He's like, I know this boy.
Yeah. And that was fun to see, like big play, big hit at the beginning. And as far as like the secondary goes, I was pretty impressed with our secondary for the most part. Roger McCreary was out there, still being our lockdown corner out there. I think every pass that went his way, he defended. There may have been like one that slipped through, but every time I was looking at him, he defended the pass, which that's to be expected with him coming back and being a senior. And let's talk about linebackers, because I think this is where now we're having a little bit of a difference of the 4-3 and 3-4 versus how we used to run the offense under Kevin Steele. And I think the linebackers are, slowly adjusting. You're seeing Zacoby McClain and Owen Papo as the first stringers kind of starting to figure out things. They seem more confident out there than earlier when we were able to see other kind of practices. So I was excited to see some growth there from them, and it's again, more reps, you get to see more and more comfortability with it. Jared, any kind of like things that stood out to you on defense that you saw from the A-Day game?
I didn't do a good job of watching individual performances, but I mean the second team offense just could not move the ball. I mean, I think they ended the day with like 35 yards or something.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I mean, even though they're your second team offense, you expect to get more than that. So I think we might be pretty nasty on defense. They mentioned Tank had that turnover, and they said, and this was the second team defense that caused it, but Stitchcom or whoever the announcer was basically said that that's been pretty common apparently in spring practices. They've been causing a lot of turnovers. And that's something that with Kevin Steele, we had, he was a mastermind and did wonders, for Auburn, but we never had a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
So, I think we would get them in key moments, but we never had a lot of them. And honestly, people forget this because I know we're all caught up in what's going on right now. Alabama's blowing everybody out right now offensively, but for about the first 5 to 7 years of Saban's run here, it was basically there were many games they would have lost except their defense scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like the defense would create points for the offense. They ran the ball well, played good defense. So I think that's probably the mentality we need to have for this team. It's not going to be putting up 40 points a game. If we're going to win ball games, it's going to be play good defense, probably create some turnovers, run the ball well, don't make mistakes, Bo manage the game. And I think we have the defense that can do that.
Yeah. That's maybe a change in our mentality there on defense. We've heard it plenty of times. Oh, there was a fumble. Oh, there was an interception. And I think, some of that is warranted. Usually defenses are better in spring practice than offenses because offenses are still installing things. But I think there's something to be said there because, even Tank, that kind of looked like a regular, quote unquote, regular kind of, he catches the ball and runs. But the defense was able to punch the ball out. And that's something that I love to see. I love to see that from a tenacity side on the defense, because then that kind of shows you they're not just going to, ultimately first tackle, but if you can get a hand on the ball to try to punch it out, do it, because that's when you can swing the momentum of your team and maybe help your team win from the defensive side.
You don't usually. I have no data to back this up, but you may not usually inherit this much veteran leadership and skill level on defense from a previous fired regime. If somebody gets fired, usually the wheels have fallen off, and really it was more the offensive side. Defense, listen, there's teams out there with better 5-star players, but these guys have a lot of experience. The secondary with McCreary and Smoke Monday deciding to come back. Zacoby McClain led the league in tackles. Owen Papo was a 5-star who's a very smart guy. They got to be licking their chops on the defensive side with what they have to work with. And this will be the last time I say it, but I think it's going to be like we're going to have good pitchers. We may not hit a lot of home runs, but we're going to have good pitchers. Keep the score down. And we'll see what happens. But I think the defense is going to be what we're going to rely on.
Yeah, I think so. Until our offense gets going, we may need to rely on our defense a little bit more. And what was the phrase from Derek Mason a while ago? I think it was like he's like a kid in the candy store. Like this is there's a lot of talent, and he knows it. It's just now using those tools that Derek Mason's now been given, and all of these very talented players on defense, using those and putting them in, the coaches say in the right position, put them in a position where they can succeed. And I think we haven't even mentioned this, but JJ Pegues, moving from offense over to defense, essentially a week before this A-Day game. So he was on offense, doing his thing at tight end, which it's kind of what we saw a little bit last year, and kind of also like a gadget player in Wildcat and that kind of stuff. But they've officially moved him over defensive line, which Jared, what's your thoughts on that? Do you like it? Do you not? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I said it on a podcast, but I told somebody I think that's the best move for him. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but with the skill set he was given and the body size, I mean, somebody said he played center field in high school.
What?
Center field.
No way.
That's what I heard. I mean, that type of skill set needs to be on a defensive line and good for him, because that's where the money is too.
Yeah, it is.
It needs to be on some kind of line, either offensive or defensive, and I think defensive. So if he can hone that craft, I mean, it's really now at this point learning how to play it, because he's been given tools by God that a lot of us don't have, and a lot of those players don't. So now just go learn the position, and it's a pretty solid equation at that point. If he can learn the position, I think good things are going to happen. He chased Bo down.
He did.
And most people will say, well, that's Bo. Bo's pretty fast. I mean,
yeah, he is.
He chased him down, and so I think good things will come from him. They're not going to happen right away.
No.
But I think it was a good move.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw him, taking reps with the second teamers, and I think maybe even with third teamers. But that's to be expected. I mean, he did play a little bit in high school at defensive line, but that wasn't his bread and butter kind of position. And so he's now kind of having to come back to that and adjust back to it. But, I mean, Auburn's in the previous few years, I'm thinking about like Noah Bignogany, like transferring from wide receiver to being one of the most locked down corners in the nation, and then now playing in the NFL. It's like there's some truth to, you don't have to be on offense to be a really good player, which some players they think you have to be on offense to be the flashy player. No, I think JJ Pegues playing up the middle, kind of sometimes lining up right in front of the center or something like that. I think him plugging some holes up the middle with just his capabilities, and then every once in a while, when he gets that one-on-one situation, chasing down the quarterback or a running back, he's got such capabilities that I think defensive line fits him super well.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it's just also a good fit when it comes to, we lost Jeremiah Wright, and defensive line really got pretty good first stringers, but the second stringers, I think we were needing some depth there, and so that's where I know JJ will come in and give some fresh legs to some guys.
If JJ learns the basics, I mean, he's the type of guy that's so athletic that he could drop back, read the passing line and pick a ball off. I mean,
it's true.
And you just don't see that from guys that size. He's nowhere near Cam Newton level, but when you think about Cam, you're not supposed to be able to move as quick and fast as Cam does at that size. Same thing with JJ. I mean, he's a big guy that you just can't push around, and he can also do a 360 spin and hurdle.
So true.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I'm glad he's on the team. I hope that works out. I hope this doesn't become that didn't work, let's go back to offense, and then he's starting to think maybe I transfer. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think good things should come from that.
Yeah, definitely. One other guy we haven't mentioned, but it's kind of like in the Devin Barrett category, where he was off the team last year but has come back on the team, is Chandler Wooten. And Chandler Wooten, it's looking like he's getting comfortable because he almost had interception. Honestly, probably should have had it. But one of the funny things that happened, it was happening like right in front of me in the stadium. I don't know if the TV caught it, Jared, but he should have had the interception. And as soon as he runs over to the sideline after the play, he was just like, God dang it, I missed it. And the coach was like, give me some 20 push-ups right now. And it was hilarious. It just made him
really?
do some push-ups. Oh yeah.
See,
oh yeah.
I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to knock the previous staff. I don't know if that would happen. Like, that might be what's going to create. Like look, you made a good play, but you didn't get the turnover.
Yeah. I mean, it should have been a turnover, maybe a pick six. Like, that was kind of, he had it in his hands, dropped it.
Well, think about this. Think about the difference in that. So everything matters. We go back to Zacoby McClain. If he intercepts A&M last year, we win that ball game. So you think about, we're like, oh, you made a good play, but you didn't intercept it. Big whoop. No, that stuff matters.
Oh yeah. Well, in the game, when the game's offensive based, where a lot of it is back and forth, scoring back and forth. That if you can take one of those away, the defense can do that. I feel like that is able to help your offense even, and your whole team's mojo around it too.
I mean, I hate to say it, we may not have beaten Tennessee if Smoke Monday doesn't pick it off and take it to the house.
Man.
That was a momentum changer. So that stuff's big. That's good to see. I mean, I hate it for these kids. That's a lot of work, but to have to do push-ups on that. But it lets you know you got to focus more because we need that interception.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jared. Let's hit on the special teams just for a very short, brief moment. We got to see a couple guys get some kickoff returns. Tank, Shivers were kind of the main two I think I saw. Tank took the opening kickoff return for a touchdown, though honestly I think Anders had at least two hands on him.
I think they were just letting him because Shivers did it too. I think you and I could have taken one to the house yesterday.
Right. I mean, I think it was just like blocking, like, hey, let's make sure what happens. Are we lined up correctly?
Yeah.
But it was a little bit at the beginning like, oh wow, like they actually did it. But I was like, no, Anders was there. Like, he had two hands on the guy. Like, it's just, flashy. I feel like it was kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah. It was fun to watch, but after Shivers did it too, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Right. Is our kickoff return that bad?
Yeah. Either I hope they were letting him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Another thing you've already mentioned it, punt return, Javarius Johnson, number 6. He got some punt returns. Did you notice anybody else taking punt returns? I think that was the one I saw, but I don't know if there was any others.
I didn't. I only saw number 6.
Okay. I think that might have been the only guy taking punts. But we did end up having for punters, Aiden Marshall and Oscar Chapman kind of sharing the load there. Aiden, I honestly have my money on him. I think Oscar Chapman, the Australian guy, I think there's still a lot of growth for him because I think Aiden Marshall is just, I remember thinking this like 2-3 years ago when he was on the team, and even last year, he's just a solid like 40 to 45 yard punt guy that can punt it well. And honestly, that's kind of what you need sometimes. You don't need the guy that can bomb it 60 yards and then the next one, shank it and you go 20 yards. You kind of want a little consistency. And I think Oscar had a shank early on. He was able to come back and I think get like a 43-yarder out of bounds at the 7. So I don't know. Honestly, I think Aiden Marshall has it, but if Oscar Chapman, he may come in there and swoop in there and get the punting job. Anders Carlson, like normal, like we expected, made both of his field goals, made all his PATs as well, made a 28-yarder and a 35-yarder. That's to be expected. I feel like he's kind of an automatic guy, especially inside of 40 to 45.
Most people wait till like commercial break or quarter to end to go, refill their drink. I go do it when Anders lines up to kick. I'm like, that's automatic.
I think so too.
Time to beat the crowd. The crowd.
Yeah, and I was thinking back. Even his brother Daniel Carlson at time. Like pretty much his whole career at Auburn was automatic. And that's kind of cool to see now Anders after the first year when Gus was putting him out at 50, 55 yards as a freshman.
Yeah, that wasn't really his fault. Yeah.
No, you're going to miss those from time to time. You will hit some if you've got the leg power, which Anders does. But I think I hope we put him in good situations where he can build up that confidence and make those field goals. Jared, anything else? Any other observations about this team now that we got to see them at A-Day and now go into a little bit of a break? I think they have one more practice on Monday, probably to review things and maybe do some walkthroughs. But For the most part, the spring practice is done. Any other observations from this spring practice?
No, I mean, this one's kind of silly, but I don't know. Was the no name on the back, is that normal for A-Day, or you think that's going to be a Harsin thing?
I think it's normally like that.
Okay. Because I was I didn't know who some of these players were.
Yeah.
But that's it. I saw that, and I said, I don't know if this is a Harsin thing or if this is just an A-Day thing, and I figured it was probably just A-Day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Clint Richardson probably knows best, but I don't think they normally have it. Because Clint's the uniform database guy. He probably has all the A-Day uniforms documented somewhere too. But
not a big deal. I just noticed that and thought, I wonder, because some guys, I think it was Joe Paterno, he was always a no name, like this is a team effort.
Yeah.
Did you see it? I actually thought this was kind of cool. Central Florida, Gus and them, for their spring game, the players got to put their Twitter handle on the back of the jersey.
See, I didn't really like that, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cheesy, a little bit.
Here's why I would say necessarily for me, maybe not, but everything in recruiting matters, and so these kids probably thought it was cool. It's like Oregon's uniforms. They annoy some people, but the recruits kind of love them. So,
I mean, and I can kind of see that. I mean, especially in we're kind of moving towards maybe the players, getting paid and from sponsors and that kind of stuff. And this is kind of their voice. Oh, cool. That's Tank Bigsby's Twitter handle. Okay, cool. Let me go follow him right now. Or Insta, whatever. Whatever it is.
I'm not on Twitter, so mine would have been blank. So here we are. We're back to Auburn now.
Hey, that's right. Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
Well, not on Twitter, as I just said, but you can find me on Facebook or Instagram just under my name, Jared Davis.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?